When we think about the fall of Rome, we imagine barbarians trying to break down the gates, legions being wiped out, or emperors poisoned on marble palace floors. But empires do not collapse only because of external attacks. They begin to rot from within. And one of the most corrosive forces has always been monetary failure. Rome did not fall solely because of invasions or corruption. It fell because its monetary system collapsed. And the lesson we must draw from this collapse is clear. Every modern economy that believes it can manipulate money at will without understanding the consequences is heading toward a tragic end. Let's start the film. For centuries, the heart of the Roman economy was the silver denarius. First minted around 201 BC, this coin was made of nearly pure silver and was trusted across the entire empire and even beyond its borders. Roman soldiers were paid in it. Merchants preferred to trade with it. Ordinary people stored their wealth in it. The denarius was more than money. It was trust turned into metal. The power of the empire and the value of the coin were inseparable. As long as Rome stood, people trusted its money. But ruling an empire is more expensive than money itself. Legions had to be paid, fortresses and baths had to be built, and wars had to be financed. By the 2nd century AD, Rome could no longer sustain itself. The empire was defending its borders against Germanic tribes, fighting the Parthians in the east, and dealing with growing internal problems. Tax revenues were no longer sufficient to cover military expenses. So emperors turned to an ancient tactic: debasement. Taxes paid by citizens remained the same, but the amount of silver inside the denarius was reduced. The numbers tell the story clearly. Under Emperor Augustus, the denarius contained nearly 95% silver. By the early 3rd century, during the reign of Emperor Caracalla, this ratio had fallen to around 50%. By the mid-3rd century, under Emperor Gallienus, the denarius contained less than 5% silver. What was once a solid, reliable metal coin had become little more than a bronze piece coated with a thin layer of silver. The people noticed. Inflation began to rise in Rome. As money lost its value, prices soared. A measure of wheat that could once be bought for 1 denarius now cost dozens. This was not an abstract concept. It destroyed the lives of ordinary Romans. Legions demanded higher wages to keep up with rising costs. Merchants refused debased coins and preferred barter or payment in gold. Local economies reverted to direct exchange because money no longer preserved value. The more trust in money eroded, the more emperors produced cheaper coins, believing that more money could replace lost value. For Rome, this was a vicious cycle, one that history has repeated endlessly. The inflation crisis peaked during the so-called crisis of the 3rd century. Between AD 235 and 284, Rome endured nearly 50 years of chaos, revolts, devastating plagues, civil wars, and economic collapse. Emperors rose and fell at alarming speed. Some ruled for only months before being assassinated. Behind this political drama stood a currency that had lost its value. Taxes were collected in worthless coins. Farmers abandoned their land rather than pay. Trade networks disintegrated. To prevent total collapse, the empire tried everything from price controls to forced production. None of it worked. Emperor Diocletian attempted a solution. In AD 301, he issued the edict on maximum prices, fixing the prices of thousands of goods and services, from food to labor. Those who violated the edict faced death. It was brutal. But a currency that had lost its value could not be repaired by decree. Official trade nearly collapsed entirely. The Roman people quickly understood a simple truth: no law can make worthless money sound again. Eventually, Rome abandoned the denarius altogether. Emperor Constantine introduced the solidus around AD 312, a gold coin of reliable purity. This restored some trust and endured for centuries in the Eastern Roman or Byzantine Empire. But the Western Roman Empire was already on the brink of collapse. The debasement of the denarius had destroyed Rome's economic core. Armies became unmanageable. Trade networks vanished. Trust disappeared. Rome's fall was not a single event, but a long process, and the collapse of its monetary system was one of its most defining causes. What does that mean for us today? It means this: the collapse of money has always been a cause of imperial decline. Rome believed it could deceive its people with coins that looked the same but were worth less. Modern governments believe they can achieve the same outcome by printing paper money, manipulating interest rates, or inflating away debt. But the result has never changed. The cost is paid by the public. Wealth is destroyed. Trust vanishes. Rome learned the importance of money the hard way. If we ignore it, we will be forced to learn the same lesson. History has continued to teach this lesson long after Rome. Every major inflation crisis since has followed the same pattern. Governments debase money to fund spending and debt. Elites protect themselves with real assets. Ordinary people become poorer. Rome's monetary crisis is not just history, it is a blueprint of collapse. The 20th century provides even darker examples. After World War I, Germany was crushed under the weight of reparations imposed by the Treaty of Versailles. Like Rome before it, the state turned to money creation to cover its debts. By 1923, hyperinflation was out of control. A loaf of bread that had cost 1 mark before the war cost over 200 billion marks by the autumn of that year. People carried money in wheelbarrows. Pensioners starved as lifetime savings evaporated. And just like in Rome, debtors benefited while those who owned real assets, land, factories, became even richer. Economic collapse played a major role in Hitler's rise. In the early 2000s, Zimbabwe followed the same path. Land was seized without compensation, production collapsed, and the government turned to the printing press to survive. By 2008, inflation reached an unimaginable level, 89.7 sextillion% annually. Prices doubled and tripled daily. Shops could not change price tags fast enough. Eventually, Zimbabwe abandoned its currency entirely, forcing citizens to trade in US dollars or South African rand. Once again, a government believed it could deceive its people. Once again, the people paid the price. You don't need to look only at extreme cases. Even advanced modern economies are repeating Rome's experiment. Consider the United States. In 1971, President Richard Nixon ended the gold standard, severing the final link between money and a tangible anchor. From that moment on, the dollar became a fiat currency, backed not by gold, but by faith in government. As in Rome, the temptation to overspend became irresistible. Debt expanded, money supply grew, and inflation quietly eroded purchasing power. We may not carry money in wheelbarrows, but people feel the loss. Something that $1 could buy in 1971 now costs more than $6. The coins look the same, the banknotes look the same, but the value inside is gone. The tactic is always the same. Governments portray inflation as growth. Rising wages are sold as prosperity even when costs rise faster. Debt, consumption, and spending are marketed as investment. Like Roman emperors, leaders pretend nothing has changed, while every coin, every banknote, every paycheck quietly loses value. What makes today especially dangerous is the scale. Rome's collapse was imperial. Weimar Germany's hyperinflation was national. Zimbabwe's was local. Today, the entire world operates on fiat currencies, massive debt, and central banks capable of creating trillions at the first sign of trouble. The next collapse will not be confined to one empire or one nation. It will ripple globally. And if history is a guide, those who suffer will not be the wealthy who protect assets, but the millions dependent on wages, pensions, and savings tied to depreciating money. So what should you learn from Rome's monetary collapse? First, understand that inflation is not an accident. It is a policy, a silent tax that has destroyed empires for 2,000 years. Second, understand that real wealth is not numbers on paper or screens, but assets that survive when money fails: land, productive factories, resources. Third, never believe stability is permanent. First-century Romans would have laughed at the idea that their money could collapse. Germans in 1913 never imagined wheelbarrows of cash. Zimbabweans in the 1980s believed independence meant prosperity. History proves otherwise. Rome's fall teaches us this. Monetary systems collapse slowly, then suddenly, when trust is gone. When money loses real value, society itself begins to fracture. Contracts fail. Trade collapses. Armies disintegrate. States lose legitimacy. Barbarians at the gate can cause damage, but the true enemy has always been inside the treasury. The most striking truth is this. History does not repeat exactly, but if you ignore it, it will still destroy you. Rome did not fall simply because of incompetent emperors or greedy elites. It fell because power abused money, revealing how fragile currency truly is. That fragility never disappears. If this video added value for you, please subscribe. The answers you are looking for in history are hidden here.